V3EJ, who is going to introduce our first speaker.
All right, well, thank you very much, Ron, and it's a pleasure to introduce Todd V5MX to the group. Here's what I know about Todd, very briefly, at least what is fit for presentation here. Todd developed an interest in radio at the age of 13 and started out as a AM radio DXer, listening to faraway radio stations at night. His interest soon developed into shortwave reception, where he learned about shortwave broadcast bands and also about ham radio. His first experience with ham radio was in 1984 as a result of a field day operation, and he finally got his license in 1990. And it would appear that the contest bug bit him very soon thereafter. Todd is very active in all aspects of contesting. He's a member of the CW Ops group. He's on generally in the CWTs every Wednesday. He's also quite active in RTTY as well as SSB. He's a well-rounded contester. Todd has operated from several other locations. He's done significant contesting from the big station in Edmonton at V6JY. He's done remote operations from several stations, but most notably from NJ4P, also W4P, same station, different call for WPX reasons, I believe. Todd has numerous contesting records and has been very, very active for his entire ham radio career in contesting. Todd suffered a big setback several winters ago. I believe it was 4 years ago. A major ice storm wiped out most of his antennas and took down 2 of his towers. Todd is currently in the rebuilding phase of resulting from that storm. And I can tell you that if you thought that your contest scores were in jeopardy or you had some serious competition for number 1, you ain't heard nothing yet. Todd is going to be bigger and better than ever. So I think Todd's going to talk about something that he and I participated in, but I won't spoil that. I'll turn it over to Todd.
Thanks, John. Thanks very much for that. First of all, I'd like to thank CCO for the invitation to present here and talk about our WRTC experience. This presentation will focus on the actual trip to Italy and the events of that week, but I thought I should fill you in a little bit on how we got here. In 2017 and 2018, I built the station outside the city of Weyburn on about 6 acres, and started making a fair bit of noise, and that caught the eye of Tom VE3CX and Carrie VE4EA. And in the summer of 2019, they ventured out here, and they said, why don't you make a serious stab at qualifying for WRTC? So long story short, I did. Was successful in qualifying, and had enough sense to ask V3EJ if he'd go with me. So that was a quick rundown on how we got to where this presentation is. So I'm going to share my screen here. How does that look? All right.
Yeah, good.
Good. Okay. So WRTC 2022 actually happened in July 2023. And Canada was very well represented at WRTC. Myself, V3EJ, Gilles, VA2EW, and Victor, VA2WA, and of course Yuri, V3DZ. And that was all on the competitor side. And VE7SV, CE2SV was representing Canada on the referee side. Our trip to Italy started in Toronto. John was in charge of packing. This is just a picture of just a bit of the luggage. I think we're still missing John and Hazel's stuff at this point. So he was in charge of packing the 3 stations. You can see in the Pelican cases there. everything was at his place after we'd done our run through in April in the Ontario QSO party. And we had no problems getting checked in. You know, the oversized bags and stuff like that, they didn't even look twice at them going through security with, you know, all 3 radios, computers, the whole 9 yards. And after a lovely 3-hour wait in Pearson, we were on our way to Venice. We got to Venice. There was no issues. Beautiful flight. Again, no problem at all getting the equipment and all the baggage through customs. I don't believe they even opened it. We met our drivers at the airport for a van to take us the hour and a half to Bologna. And I could probably do another presentation just on Italy and its drivers. That was quite the culture shock for someone who never set foot out of North America, I'll tell you. We arrived in Castel San Pietro Terme. It's a little small city, about 25,000 people. It's 30 kilometers southeast of Bologna. And WRTC was set up in 4 different hotels, all right in close proximity to one another. Checked in, met some people, and you know, called it an early evening kind of thing. Next morning, the first thing we did was take absolutely everything John had packed out, checked it, make sure it survived the trip. The baggage handlers, you know, weren't too rough on anything, and that was expected. John's packed for 1 or 2 of these before, so he knew what it was going on. Wednesday evening, we all gathered at the convention center and held the opening ceremonies where each of the teams was introduced individually. A short program, stuff like that. And here's a banner that was in front of the headquarters hotel, just around the corner from where we actually stayed. And you know, they asked everyone to sign the banner. Wonder if you can find all 6 Canadian call signs on there. Just write in a comment if you think you found all 6. Thursday was a series of meetings for the competitors, referees. Competitors are in yellow, and black. Referees are in orange. Packed you all in and basically went through the rules with you, told you how things were and stuff like that, and clarifications, etc. It was a lot livelier discussion than I had anticipated. There was actually some open arguing rules and some shouting over top of one another, and it was quite lively. Also in that, they did the draw for referees, and you can see here, about halfway down, we were paired with Christian, Hotel Alpha 5 X-Ray, and nice gentleman. You know, after the meeting, we kind of got together and had a coffee and you know, just went through how our plans for how it was going to go and stuff like that. But even then, he also drew the card that held the envelope that held our WRTC call sign, and he was not willing to share that before the 15 minutes that he was allotted. All we knew about our call sign was that it would be one of these 70 call signs that they had put up on the board for us in the meeting. There was also on Thursday, there was some other stuff to do. we had to install the scoring software on the computers. I'm not much of an IT guy, but it fell to me, and John's picture here doesn't really do justice to how exasperated I was at this point. The trouble with the computer and their software or getting their software on my computer and stuff like that just made for an interesting afternoon. Now, some of the locations were sponsored, and I know CCO sponsored was one of those location sponsors, but ours was sponsored by CW Ops, and nice picture of us displaying their banner while waiting for Christian to collect the referee box from the organizing committee. And Gilles VA2EW and Victor VA2WA were in the CCO sponsored location. So I mentioned the referees box. It's not really, the best. My sense of urgency to get going to the site didn't really mesh with the Italian organizing committee. They had their speed, and we spent a good portion of Friday. We had our site drawn nice and early, but the rush for the referees boxes led to quite the pile up, and it took a bit to get that sorted out. We had drawn the site RA1, which was located in Ravenna, the next province over, and it was one of 3 sites located on agriturismo, which is basically a vacation farm. It's a working farm, and they had 3 sites, 2 others in besides ours. Wasn't all that far of drive, about 40 minutes. But as I'd mentioned before about the Italian style of driving, we'd given up on that already, and we had my son-in-law Quinn had a rental car, and he had everything packed, ready for us to go to make the quick getaway that never really happened. In typical Italian fashion, these are what we had for directions to the site, and the message that your site manager will meet you there. And off we went. Thank God for Google Maps. That's all I have to say. We found our way to the site, and indeed they were actually expecting us. So, but we had to sit and wait. The manager for the agriturismo, Stefano, he'd be right back, and he'd take us to our specific site. So we headed out from the actual hotel/restaurant on the agriturismo and headed down the country road. And one of the first stops we come to is one of the other teams, and it's Echo Charlie 2 Delta X-ray and Charlie Tango 1 India Lima Tango, with Jerry W1 Victor Echo for the referee. And they weren't very happy with their site. They had wires. The one end of the 80-meter inverted V was touching the steel box of a grain trailer. Anyway, there was a little bit of excitement there, and we got that sorted out, and we carried on. And our managers leading us down this a road just like this one, and it got even a little more rural from there, and very much back roads. along the edges of fields and stuff like that. And twists and turns here and there, and look over at John like, how far out are we going? And we got to our site, and boom, just on the other side of this building is a nice double lane highway. So we definitely took the back way. So you can see we're getting the lay of the land here. This is our rental car you see parked in front of the door. And that square part of the building, the two windows on the one side, the door and the window on the other, that's actually where the station is located. You can see the guy wire for the mast and the antenna on top of it. And just note the little lean-to on the left side of the building here, left side of the main building. That plays an important role later in the operation. Being WRTC, everyone has the same antenna setup. Tri-bander, 2 elements on 20, 2 on 15, 3 on 10, about 10 meters high. And underneath that, inverted V for 40 and an inverted V for 80. So basically at the station, you're given three coaxes, 3 feed lines, 1 for the tri-bander, 1 each for 40 and 80, and the rotator control. Now, here's the inside of the room. We were lucky in that we had oodles of space. Lots of room, high ceilings, fluorescent lights, no air conditioning. A couple of the teams were lucky enough to get air conditioning. We didn't. And during setup, it was blistering hot, like 37 degrees Celsius. The one drawback was that there was only one power socket, and it was located far from this middle table that we were using. So we had to come up with a solution for that. The other downside was these chairs that you see in the picture. That's what we were going to sit on for 24 hours. Now, after the presentation or sometime later, you're going to want to ask John or get from John the information on what he did to make his chair much more comfortable. It was a unique solution, let's put it that way. So we had a few problems. The organizing committee was also supposed to, supply like a desk lamp and fans, stuff like that. None of that turned up in the referee box. So we came up with a solution that we'd send Quinn, my son-in-law, the driver you've seen in the previous picture. We'd send him into town with a list of things to get, one of them being an extension cord, see if he could find a fan and a desk lamp or 2. So we didn't need to, keep the whole building lit up and all that stuff. So we spent the rest of Friday getting everything set up. We put John and I in the middle table. Christian, our referee, was behind us. He kind of had his own little table there, and you notice the windows are wide open, just trying to catch any of the breeze that would show up. So by the time Quinn returned with the items on the list, the farm's agronomist had stopped by, and of course we asked him, "Hey, we need an extension cord," and he happily fished one out for us, and that got us going and on the air. Quinn got back. He brought back a beautiful stand-up fan. Couldn't track down any lamps. Brought us a wonderful selection of snacks and food and stuff like that. And most importantly, an extension cord. So now we have 2 extension cords. And you're going to want to remember that fact too, because it plays an important role here in a little bit. So we got everything up and running, and after, running some stations as I4/VE5MX, we decided we were pretty happy with how the station set up the noise. We had very little in the way of man-made noise and stuff like that. We were very lucky compared to some of the stories we'd heard from other people regarding their, they get everything set up and their noise across all bands is like S9 plus 20, stuff like that. Just like being in the city, more or less, right? So that time our site manager came by, Alessandro, IZ2 Queen Echo Yankee, and he took us back to the Agriturismo headquarters, where we had a delicious meal. They were at this particular place. They weren't as good with the English. It really paid to have an Italian speaker with us, and we had a lovely meal. Rooms were comfortable. My roommate, bit on the questionable side, but when in Rome. All right. Got up the next morning. Jerry, W1VE, was also staying there. The other 2 teams had made their other arrangements on their own place to stay for the night before. The next morning, beautiful breakfast, and we were off on our way, but no, we weren't. So I should mention these the back roads that we were down were rough. I don't know if any of you recall, but May of 2023, that area of Italy had suffered some pretty significant flooding, and the roads that were left, were pounded out. Had, I wouldn't even call it gravel. They had rock, crushed rock in a lot of places, and it was really rough, and it chewed up one of Alessandro's tires. We put our best men on it, and 15 minutes later, it wouldn't rival an F1 pit stop, but we were on our way. And after that, we got to the station, checked out the bands, listening around, seeing how conditions were, stuff like that. Generally just feeling good, trying to get a nap. There's no bed there, of course, because we weren't there to sleep. I found kind of a comfortable position and relaxed, and until 15 minutes before, and we handed in our phones, and Christian opened the envelope, and we found out we were Italy 4-4 Quebec, and we've busily set up our voice keys, our memories, and all that stuff. Of course, with the radios turned down, you're not allowed to transmit in that 15 minutes. You're not allowed to listen, nothing. You're gonna have to forgive me. This is kind of where we run out of pictures for the contest, because neither of us had a phone or a camera, and besides that, we were far too busy. We were very lucky with our referee, Christian. He's a videographer and stuff like that, and he actually recorded or videoed the whole contest, and has put up about a 20-minute excerpt of it on YouTube. I should have put that link in here, but I didn't. So we started, just beforehand, we kind of set a goal, pretty lofty goal, 200 Qs an hour, 4,800 contacts total, and that it was a tough goal to set. Spent the start of the contest, both of us were moving around a lot, trying the different modes, different bands, stuff like that. And about 3/4 of the way, half 3/4 of the way through the hour, we kind of found our rhythm. And for the next just about 12 hours, we were able to maintain a pace ahead of 200 contacts an hour, and things were going good. And then boom, everything went dark, like nothing. Zoom. Sitting there with just the laptop screen, and boy, that was unnerving. Everything just a screeching halt. So sat there for a second and looked at each other. It's like, well, okay, let's figure out what's going on. Christian picked up his phone. He was, as the referee, he had a phone for the organizing committee. Give him a phone for official business, and he started trying to get a hold of Alessandro, because this was 1:30 in the morning local. It's pitch black, right? John and I started looking around for why we had no power, and it suddenly kind of dawned on us, hey, the rest of the yard has power. This part of the main building still has power. What, it's got to be a breaker box, right? We searched through the building, flashlight, trying to found the service into the building, or into that room, but breaker was appeared to be in there, so no problem. And we were standing there outside the building, the three of us, and more or less resigned to the fact that we were going to have to wait for Alessandro to come over and see what he could do for us. And then Christian said, well, why don't we see if we can find an outlet that still has power? And it was like, geez, that's a great idea. So remember that building I pointed out on the north side? You see it just to the left of the arrow there? All I'm going to say is the door was open. Okay. That's my story. Door was open, and inside is a power outlet and a light switch. I switch on the lights. Lights come on. Hey, John, I found something. That's way too far. We're never going to have enough cord to reach there. Whatever, we'll pull one of the stations out of the room. We'll operate outside if we have to. Just something to get back on the air. So remember that second extension cord that I mentioned a little bit earlier? All Quinn could find in the town for an extension cord was a 25-meter cord on a reel. A great big honking thing, and he told me what he paid for it, because I'd sent him with my credit card. I tried delegating that to my teammate. He said, you pay for the stuff. He said, you're the team leader. You pay for the stuff. Okay. So I sent Quinn to the nearest town with my credit card. This is what he come back with, and told me what he paid for it. And I, well, okay, we're not going to send it back. We don't have time. We'll keep it. Anyway, we plug it in that building and start stringing it out. And I'm like, there's no way that's going to be even close. I thought we'd be lucky to make it to that first door you see with the shade pulled down. And lo and behold, I get past that door. I keep going. And I don't know if you can see it in that picture, but you see the downspout there just behind the car. It actually made it that far. So with the cord. Then we grabbed one of our, you can't really see it well in this picture, but we grabbed the spare power bar we had, plugged the score reporting router into that, then pulled the farm's extension cord out, plugged it into the power bar, and we were able to get back on the air, barely. It wasn't good. We had enough power to run just enough, or just not enough power, but enough outlets to run the radios, the computers, and the monitors. No lights, no fan. It was a good thing the referee's equipment was running on battery power. But we were back on the air, and it felt like 2 hours. I was sure it was 2 hours. Turns out it was 38 minutes total that we were off the air. And we were actually still on our pace. That's how much of a lead we'd built up in the first 12 hours. So John and I are back in business. About this time, Alessandro shows up, and Christian fills him in. He gets to work on the problem. It wasn't until after the contest and we were sitting around and said, how long did we operate in the dark? And we generally come up with that we think it was somewhere between 2 and 2.5 hours. With nothing other than the lights off the monitor and the radio. Not exactly the best way to do it. And eventually, it was the farm's agronomist, the one who'd come through with the extension cord, who showed up, and it was a GFI breaker behind a locked door. If we'd have had the key for it, we'd have been able to fix it ourselves. But that's just the way it goes. So after all that excitement, after sunrise, John and I kind of had a little brownout of our own, just kind of the combination of the heat, of being awake for 20 hours, even in the middle of the night when that fan was out, it was still 27, 28 degrees Celsius, warmer in the room where there was no air moving, of course. And, the rush of adrenaline from the power outage just kind of sapped us a little bit. And shortly after sunrise, it took we took a little fade there in our, we fell off our pace, but it took a bit, but as usual, we kind of fought through it and managed to make it to the end. We got there, and this was the picture is the score we submitted, 4,186 contacts, and we ended with 4,142, 5.4 million, good enough for right in the middle of the pack, 29th of the 58 stations, which was right in line with, when we had talked long before we got to Italy. John had done this many times. This was my first time. This was my first time outside North America. So, culture shock for this double jumper. I was wide-eyed for most of the week. Let's put it that way. We thought this was a middle of the pack would be a pretty darn good place to land, and we did. It was right in line with our expectations. So on the Monday, as they were tabulating the scores and getting ready for for the closing ceremonies and the awards ceremonies, talking with the other teams, we learned we didn't really have it so bad. All things considered, our sight was good, our noise was good, our tri-bander didn't fall off the mast like RA3CO and RA3DUU's problem. And it was quite the week, and the closing ceremonies. It was a great experience meeting an awful lot of contesters that I've worked many times. So that's the story of India 44 Quebec. It's more of a story of extension cords and problems than actually operating the contest, but we've all done that, and it was quite the experience. Just before I turn it back, I'd like to put in one shameless plug for the Canadian Prairies QSO party coming up this May 11th, May 12th. We'd love to see you there, and we'd love the contacts. With that, I'll turn it back to our host.
Hey, thanks very much, Todd. That was wonderful. And it was great. We have actually a few minutes here for questions, and I know that there were some here. One was, what was the difference between yellow shirts and black shirts?
Black shirts were just a different. I don't know if when you got to WRTC, they give you a package with a few shirts in it. There was a nice collared yellow shirt. Everything was personalized too. A nice collared yellow shirt, 2 yellow t-shirts, and a black t-shirt. I don't know if that was your work shirt or what. It was just a little different style.
Okay. Another question comes in here. What equipment was provided, and what did you have to bring?
So the equipment provided was antennas and the rotator, the 3 feed lines and the rotator cable and the rotator controller. We brought everything else. We carried our 2 transceivers, a spare K3. We used all K3s. 2 computers and a spare. Set of bandpass filters, triplexer, and 6x2, 2x6 switch. Monitors. John and I went to the mall. They still have malls in Italy, and we bought 2 nice little Philips 24-inch monitors. They were, we didn't figure they would survive baggage handlers, and we did bring the monitors home, and I ended up with 1 good monitor out of the 2 of them. Somewhere along the line, the other one got smacked on the screen, and it was inoperable. So basically, to answer your question, we bought everything: headsets, Morse keys, foot switch. The list was extensive. Again, relied on John. He the guy doesn't throw anything away. He sent me the list from 2014 and 2018 to come up with the list for 2022.
Excellent. Next question from Vlad. I think I've read that sideband contacts were bringing more points. Did you try making more sideband QSOs to improve the score?
We did. We made a concerted effort, and some guys were able to get upwards of 30% of their contacts on sideband. When we tried, we couldn't really. We never really seemed to get enough traction to make it worthwhile staying there. And that goes back when the Italians decided that sideband contacts were going to be worth more. They said, don't worry, we have a system that if you make 3 contacts on the same frequency, we're going to spot you. The organizing committee would spot you. And I don't know. John and I just didn't seem to get the traction on sideband, but we made a concerted effort to try. And it the rate just wasn't there.
Okay. There were a few people in the chat, I guess, thanking you for the presentation, and I'm going to do that as well. This is really interesting. I mean, I've read a number of reports of what it was like, obviously including Yuri, and it's just everybody has like a different perspective on it. And I know there were some participants who are competitors who had far greater problems than you had. It was actually, I know if I was going to cross the world to participate in this, and I ran into those problems, I probably would have been upset. I mean, what was it like at the closing ceremonies as everybody got together and started griping?
I, you know, for me, I was a bit surprised at uh, some of these guys, uh, not inability, but some of them how they couldn't solve the problems that were presented to them. And I mean, John and I had done an extensive amount of work, and beforehand, in well, in April of last year, April 2023, John tore his station apart, and we set our WRTC station up in a separate room. He just basically ran jumper cables from his station out to this other room. So when we finished the Ontario QSO party, um, we knew our station was working and communicating. And basically, John, I went home to Saskatchewan, and John packed the station for Italy from tearing that station apart. And so, um, yeah, you always run into problems. It's in how you prepare for them, and I guess some of the guys that weren't able to solve all their problems, I guess some of that surprised me. But um, I wasn't surprised that we ran into some problems, but I'm also not surprised that we were able to solve them, I guess is how I would put it.
Okay, that's excellent. Interesting. Well, with that, I'm going to thank you, Todd. That was a fantastic presentation. Really appreciated you coming on. And those are a few thumbs up have been coming through as well. So that's also positive.